Hello everybody, what is going on? My name is Blue and welcome back to Meta. This is Meta episode 1 of November 7th, 2014. I'm joined today by 3 players, both from North America and Europe. And of course, guys, we are going to be getting started here in just a second. A lot of stuff to talk about today, including, once again, it's going to be talking about the WTS, the ESL weeklies, and some other stuff we'll be tossing into there too. Probably going to be a lot shorter than last week, or not last week, the week before that. Episode 0 that we did was a 2-hour episode, which I think was a little bit longer than we were hoping to have, but this week should hopefully be a little bit shorter, aiming for about an hour, so be sure to stick with us as we discuss what's been happening the past few weeks in GW2 PvP. So once again, joining me today, first off to my right is going to be Cade from The Absurd. How you doing today, Cade?
I'm pretty good, how are you?
Pretty good, dude, pretty good. Moving on from that, we have 5Gauge from The Absurd. How you doing today, 5Gauge?
Hey there, pretty well, and yourself?
Pretty good, pretty good. And then last but not least is going to be Blackjack with Cheese Mode. How you doing today, Blackjack?
Hello, very good.
Very good, very good. So once again, guys, Blackjack is from Europe as well. Cade and 5Gauge are both from the North American server. So we'll kind of jump right into it here, guys. Starting off talking about the big news that came up in the past 2 weeks, and that was the ESL Go4 series announcement. For anybody who is not already aware of that announcement, last Wednesday, I believe it was, ESL threw out an announcement that announced a series of weekly cash prize tournaments, $500 or euros respectively, depending on which region you're playing on, per week, culminating that into a monthly final of a total prize pool in each of those of $1,500 or euros in the North American and European region. These should be running for, I believe, the next 3 months if the math was done right, and then we'll kind of see where it goes from there. But and again, now that we've kind of described what it is, guys, what was your immediate reactions to this? How's everybody feeling about those cups being announced?
Well, I kind of felt like it gave Guild Wars 2 esports, you know, a good start, I guess you can say, in terms of there actually being cash on the line. So, it's definitely a good start.
Yeah, I'm very happy about this change because on EU you can see different teams forming up and different compositions being tested out, and the meta is getting some progress because now people figure out what works, what will not work, and yeah, those comps that are not working will be left behind, and you actually see how the game is changing, because now there will be some change because people are now putting the effort into it and actually trying to win.
Kate?
I think Zapdos touched about like a good portion of it. A lot more teams are coming up and kind of trying to go for it, and I think a good reason for that also is that the weeklies are still around, where it's just gym tourneys. So you have that rule in place where top teams who win the Go4 Cups cannot play in that week's weekly, and I think that's a pretty good kind of area for a lot of newer teams to come in and kind of get their feet wet.
Alright, very good. So kind of beyond what you guys have already said here, talking more about now that we do have a semi-good structure going for us here, specifically, not necessarily kind of based on what you've seen in the past week, based off of what we've seen in the past with growth or decline in the scene. Do you guys think that now we're going to see a lot more growth coming due to these cups, or what's your just general thoughts on how these next few months should proceed now that not only these cups exist, but we kind of have the lower tier gem cups as well?
Well, I think we're going to be seeing different faces in the gem cups as well too, now that people don't have that barrier to entry, which are the top teams taking those every single week, right? So I feel like it's going to open up the competition slightly, but at the same time as well too, the reach of these tournaments is not a huge percentage of the community, right?
Yeah.
So that has to be worked on as well.
Kate and Zapdos?
Yeah, from the ESL weeklies, I don't know if they are also affected by that change that you can't
They actually,
participate?
so to clarify, actually, they are not, as of yet, as far as I'm aware. ESL is still allowing everyone to play in those, and they're still streaming them. Right now, only Misspedia, only the cups that I run, has made that change as of yet. ESL still has full open enrollment into their
yeah,
gem
but I think on the EU servers there are enough teams that can compete with each other, so I don't see that problem on our side, and I don't think there has to be any change, because it's like Team Champion was coming up and they did pretty well, and we have 55 HP Monks, Cheese Mode, TCG, Made in Meta, and all those teams are like on par and can beat each other, so I think the competition is quite fine, that we don't need that change. And yeah, the Sundays will be pretty interesting, and finally we'll get some progress. I'm happy.
Kate?
I think on the NA side, it's going to help grow the scene quite a bit in terms of you have a lot of people who, as you said,
Just
multiple times in the past, don't want to be streamed, and it gives them an area to kind of try and reach the other teams who are playing in the Go4 Cups.
Zeptos, you going to say something there? Or?
yeah, I just forgot some teams like Purple Smokers and Pizza with Intolerance. There are even more, I'm sure.
All right, cool. All right, so it sounds like things are going very well. So kind of with the news of the announcement getting out of the way, we can start talking about what actually happened this week in the first cup. As we said, it was announced last Wednesday, and the cup started immediately with the first series being last Sunday. Once again, EU is done a little bit earlier in the day, NA is done a little bit later, but we already have our first kind of outcomes from that. We have our first set of 8 owners of what are Go4 points now. So once again, the current standings as of this week are the Absurd leading at the moment with 100 points, the Absurd in second place with 60 points, Orin and Kizos is Happy Hour in third place with 40 points, and then we have a tie actually for third place combined with Owen and Kizos Happy Hour along with Board Esports. Both those guys have 40 points, and then fifth place is a split between the last 4 teams. Hold My Beer, Slippery Dingo Wranglers, Sharks of Lasers, and Gerudo all took home 25 Go4 points. Now again, just to clarify too, this is a continued series that'll be going throughout the month. As of after this week, there are now going to be 4 more cups that will be used to qualify teams for the monthly final, which is going to be happening, I believe, sometime in early December. But beyond that, of course, let's talk a little bit, before we kind of jump into the EU stuff too, because I do have that listed here, but before we talk too much about that, let's talk a bit about the Absurd. For anybody who is not already familiar with the team, or doesn't really know who they were, wasn't able to catch the weekly last Sunday, Cade and 5Gage, you guys are probably the best ones to do this, so tell us a little bit about what's the backstory behind the Absurd and the Absurd thing that's currently going on between the two of your squads.
I think since Cade is currently waving the banner of the Absurd, maybe he'd be a good person to introduce the team comp, pretty much.
Basically, Nas and I were both on the Absurd, and neither of us could attend the WTS qualifier because we have finals for the WTS Beijing event, like on the same date. So they picked up 5Gage and Magic Toker to replace Nas and I, so that they could participate in that. And since we can still play the weeklies, we formed up a different team just to kind of give them some practice and compete for that. So it's Nas, I, right now it's Backpack, Java, and Scobos as well.
And you guys did really good with that this week too, obviously taking first place, beating out the Absurd. So talking kind of about that, what ended up happening this week where we didn't see, again, like I said earlier, the Absurd, actually was the team that qualified for the WTS final. So what do you think happened this week between the two of you at the ESL Go4 Cup finals that allowed the Absurd to take first place over the Absurd?
Chase, you can go ahead.
Sure. So, I mean, there's no reason why there wouldn't be a harsh competition between those two teams. Both are full of very good players. And I definitely think that there are some comp issues at work there. For example, the Absurd having a very, very strong Necromancer against the kind of comp we are running is just a huge nail in the coffin right off the bat there. But, I mean, like, other than that, they just played really well. They're all players that are quite experienced in PvP. It's definitely a tough one. Every week it's going to be between the Absurd and Absurd if it does come down to that. So in terms of like micro factors that contributed to it, I just say that the rotations Absurd pulled out last Go4 Cup was just superior pretty much, and lots of the fights that we had as well as skirmishes worked out in their favor, just straight up, and some bad calls are made. So I mean it can be definitely closer, but I think there's going to be some good competition coming up next week, this Sunday. So looking forward to that.
Kate?
I definitely agree that it's going to come down largely to rotations, and whoever's going to be in the right place at the better time is going to kind of pull ahead. So we'll see what happens.
And kind of on an off-topic note here, why did you choose the name The Absurd? Just out of curiosity, just so we can clarify for anyone that was curious.
That was actually Java's idea, so I cannot elaborate too much. I don't know where he got it from, but I usually go with whatever name people present me with.
All right, so once again, guys, that is going to be the North American Cup. Kind of talking, actually, before we kind of move over to EU here for a second, are there any teams that you guys have seen specifically, either in the lower tier cups or that you ended up playing against in last weekend's bracket, that you think have the potential to grow by a pretty decent margin these next few weeks, or do you think it's mainly just going to be between you two guys for the coming weeks? Or, like I said, are there any kind of newcomers that should be rising up to your skill level over these as we progress in further into the Go4 Cups?
But I think that's a lot harder to kind of gauge because a lot of people can improve quite a bit, but you never know how far that's going to go. So I think it'll just come down to time, and we'll just see what happens.
Yeah, I think if anyone's going to come out of nowhere and become a top team immediately, that could happen at any time. And now is a great time for that to happen, considering the cash rewards we have on the line, right? So. Yeah. If it's going to happen, it'll definitely happen, but it's too hard to predict if players will just come out of the woodwork and strive to be the top team and just achieve it instantly, right? Which is what it's most likely going to happen, right? I mean, lots of players on the NA scene, not a lot, but a handful of them that are top players right now just kind of emerged from World v World or something else and just started playing really a good game in PvP, and then they ended up top players, just simple as that. So it could happen again. It's hard to tell, though, so not really sure.
Blackjack, did you have a chance to catch the NA finals? Any thoughts on what happened last week?
Yeah, my thought is it's a very different meta because there's so much damage in those games. It shuts down all possibilities to rotate. You actually have to take the fight, you have to engage, and whoever manages the cooldowns best comes out as a winner. And it looks like in EU you have those guardians standing in the middle. You feel free to leave it and try to decap and stuff, and they don't really have those options. And it's really different. And EU is kind of splitted between two metas, and we will see what's coming out best, what will actually survive in it. It's interesting.
All right, cool. So speaking of
I like
EU,
it.
Oh,
it's a different way.
Speaking of EU, moving over to the EU bracket once again, we saw something interesting actually. Like Zapdos elaborated upon earlier, there is a lot of competition, as it would seem, in the European bracket, and we have a very different kind of standings that as we take a look at what happened last week and what the current Go4 point standings are for EU. Right now, Maiden Meta is leading, as they took first place last weekend, meaning obviously they hold first place at the moment in the Go4 point standings. Then we had team, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Champignon. Is that right, Blackjack? Or
Champignon? I'm not French, but yeah.
Champignon. Champignon took second place there with 60 points currently. 55 HP Monks is tied with Purple Smokers at the moment for third place with 40 points. And then you have a four-way fifth place tie, same thing as North America, with TCG, Toxic Community, Pizza with Nutella, and Special Snowflakes, each currently having 25 points. And I think for a lot of people that are watching at home and may not keep up with the scene too much, I think the biggest surprise there is the fact that TCG at the moment is currently sitting at a tie for fifth place. Blackjack, can you elaborate at all on why you think that is? Why you think that happened last weekend?
They didn't play with the roster, I think. They lacked the Mesmer to actually get the full potential of out-rotating people. As I said, it's just you try to bunker mid and with the Guardian and try to get decaps and force rotation mistakes. It's not that much about winning the team fight. You try to get points from sneaky plays and stuff. And Texby is a really good player, but it's just the competition is getting harder, and TCG also did benefit a bit of from the lack of competition on EU. Now it's growing, and all teams have good chances against each other. The difference is not that big. They're a pretty solid team. They've shown that last couple of months they are solid, but they're not unbeatable, and everybody stands a chance.
All right, and talking a bit about Team Champignon as well, as these guys, I'm not 100% sure how long exactly they've been around. Can you elaborate on that, like kind of where they've come from? Because that's a new name that at least until last weekend I had never heard before. So what's the deal with this new team?
Yeah, it's the individuals. They are playing this game for like forever. Everybody knows them on the EU scene. Because you invite those players into puck groups and stuff. Now they've formed a team, and they seem to do pretty well. They're pretty condition-based with a very new Ellie build, but I don't think that will stay in their team comp. I can't imagine that. Now that he was playing a 3-signet condition elementalist and a necro, and together they were trying to outlast the opponent team with conditions, and Mesmer Thief are pretty vulnerable to this on the NGs also.
So they just tried to play a hard counter to what standard EU meta is, basically, and
It's not really a counter because Mesmer doesn't have the cleanse, but he's hard to catch. Not really a counter.
all right. So very good. So once again, so talking again about the fact that we saw neither TCG or Abjure take the first place spot despite just a few weeks ago qualifying for the WTS finals. Do we think that those are just kind of personal opinions as we toss this around? I personally think that this is due to the fact, and I think some of you have agreed with me on this already, is due to the fact that it's not necessarily that the teams themselves are kind of slacking off now that they've gained that victory, but more to the fact that the competition is really rising up now, that there is multiple tournaments a week going on, and one of them has a weekly cash prize going for it. What are your guys' thoughts on the events last weekend? Do you kind of agree with me? Do you think it's just the competition coming up now, or do you think the teams just might have had a bad weekend there?
You're referring to the upsets?
Yeah.
From the Go4 Cup?
Mm-hmm.
I can't exactly say. Partially because I haven't actually seen the match that TCG had in the Go4 Cup, right? It wasn't streamed, so I have no idea what went on in that match, right? So I mean, that's, I can't comment on that, obviously. But on the NA side, I don't feel like it was a huge upset. I mean, the Absurd is just a super strong team right off the bat. Like, it wouldn't be really a big surprise if that team took it, on and off with the Absurd every week, or even went on a streak, right? I think that they're very close. So,
what I noticed from Team Q and stuff also is that teams that won, like this team Champion beating TCG in the Sunday Cup, they also beat them in Team Q, and I think just the competition is rising. While TCG didn't practice in the last week, there may be a bit, not their highest potential, but I think it's not going to be one team farming the whole EU Cups. It's not going to happen.
Alright, very good. Sounds good. Okay, so I'm actually think that Rom is coming in here now, so we might be able to elaborate a little bit better as to what happened with TCG, because I don't think the match they played in was actually streamed. So let's see if we can get him in here really quickly and see if we can get his opinion on the whole ordeal. Once again, guys, do apologize for the somewhat unrehearsed addition of people. I was under the impression that Rom actually was not going to come tonight, so I kind of just assumed we'd be stuck with 3 guests like last week, but looks like he's going to come on. He said it'll be 2 minutes, so we can actually kind of move on, and then we'll discuss that once he gets into the room here. So moving on from that, what is everybody's thoughts about this weekend? How do you guys think that this weekend's going to turn out? Are we predicting kind of the same thing, outcome for NA, a absurd final?
it's not like a super easy thing to call, but I think that in all likeliness, it's a pretty good outcome. On NA, the competition of many teams who are all at the same level, it's not like it is on EU, right? Mm-hmm. Like Blackjack just listed off like what 6-7 teams that are like very competitive and very like neck and neck for the lead. So I mean, on NA, it's not that close, unfortunately. So,
Kate?
Yeah.
I have to agree with Jake for the most part. The main competition source is going to come from those 2 teams, and I haven't really seen that many other teams in Team Q, and I've been putting a little bit, so I don't think you'll have a huge upset, at least this week. Maybe in the coming weeks there might be someone who pops up, but I think it'll be the same final.
And Blackjack, thoughts on the European tournament this weekend? Who do you think's gonna make it to the finals?
Predicting this outcome is almost impossible. Yeah. There are so many good teams, and it depends on who is facing each other in the early rounds and gets the best matchup later. It's not just luck. I don't want to say luck based, but there are so many good teams and different comps also, and they don't know how to face each other. There are those comps like 55 HP monks, very sustain, low roaming potential kinda, and still a lot of damage. Then there are those teams with a complete split of bunker and DPS like TCG and Mate in Meta. And then there are teams with a mixture of both, and everything plays out differently. So nobody is really experienced in facing each other. So the outcome is like almost unpredictable. And sorry about that.
And go ahead, finish. Go ahead.
I finished.
Oh,
I finished.
Okay.
Nothing more to add. I just can't predict it.
Okay, so welcome, by the way, to Rom. Welcome to the stream.
Hello, thank you. Do you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Hey, yeah.
Beautiful.
So while I am fixing the overlays here, Rom, what happened this week with the Go4 Cup, man?
Oh shit, I need to exit that. There we go. What happened? What happened, man? We lost. Jesus, man. World is over.
What? But TCG, you guys are the best, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, we are the undefeatable. You know, we are the gods of the arena. We are we are the gods of Guild Wars. We cannot lose. No, actually, to be honest, it's basically about many factors. Like, I don't get the hype around. Of course, this is how communities usually do it. You know, you have to answer for everything. You know, all the time, just for a few bad days. You know, but yeah, mostly no practice. And then we use 2 different guys every second practice. Then we have sometimes somebody was playing the entire day. Then he doesn't feel very well when we actually play together. We come in with some shitty mentality, whatever. But we always come back. We always have the good games in between the shitty games, and we always provide in the big tournaments. And that's all I can kind of say.
Right.
I'm not gonna answer more about like the losses and so on. And you said earlier about slacking. Like you don't think we were slacking. It's your personal opinion. You don't think we were slacking. You think rather the competition is higher. It is both. The competition has arisen like mad in EU right now, only because of these Go4 Cups. It's really nice to see, actually. I love it. But we just simply gotta practice as well, you know. Many teams has practiced so much, you know, lately, and we are never a 5-man roster for a long time, you know. And it is, yeah, of course, it is frustrating at times, but we always come back when it truly is needed, you know.
Yeah.
And no, even if we have personal issues or whatever, it will all fix, you know.
All right.
Can't really say much more.
So how you guys feeling about this weekend?
I have to see. This weekend, unpredictable, like Zapdos said, completely unpredictable. We have Cheese Mode now, new. It's lovely to see them come back again. I fully support this team, and we have some nice competition. A lot of different comps as well. It's fucking nice.
Alright, so very good, guys. Alright, so that'll wrap up our discussion about the ESL Go4 Cups. Moving on from that into our next subject, we're going to jump into the WTS, actually. So starting off with the EU qualifiers. We're going to kind of go around the table here. Everybody's thoughts on this. What did we think of the outcome of the EU qualifiers? Somewhat expected, somewhat surprising. What was everyone's thoughts? Rom, you can start because I think everyone knows the answer to yours.
Wait, what did you say now? Sorry.
What were your impressions of the outcome of the EU qualifiers, basically?
Oh, of the WTS?
Yeah. Expected, unexpected, what?
Well, I mean, it was expected. We thought that we would win, and to be honest, you must have that mentality. You must have the mentality of you believing actually that you will win. Otherwise, you will still do a few more mistakes, even though maybe you don't reach. But yeah, of course, we thought we would win, but we thought we would win easier. I can tell you that, because we just realized that we need to start practice. Can't just go in trolling, especially when we use the comp we use as well. It's a lot of coordination. It's a lot of you can pull off a lot of things, but without practice, or especially without knowing, that wasn't the case during this. We know that we faced our equal comps, you know, Boone and Mim, basically. They use the same, but after that, I think, yeah, that outcome is kind of predictable. But later now, what happens now, why we have lost versus these other teams with the Condielli and stuff like this, it's majority because of our comp having the need to have a synergized gameplay. You know, in another way, I'm not saying that you don't need to synergize with other comps, of course not, but it's a different, it's more forgiving in certain situations. It's more, you can take more, yeah, the cheese mentality, and this is also superior in many ways. I'm not gonna go further on this. Now you can go, Kate.
So I mean, I think you're talking about WTS finalists for the EU, and
Yeah.
I think MIM kind of dropped the ball on a lot of those games. They were playing really well in terms of killing the right targets, but they just got out-rotated everywhere. And TCG just took it based off points, like just capture nets. And I don't think MIM was actually playing the right game. They were playing deathmatch.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. I think that the biggest upset for me watching that tournament in the finals for the EU WTS qualifiers was the fact that MIM did so well in the deathmatch game, right? And keeping Sizer and Helseth like in check. But definitely like they fell off when it came to controlling the rest of the map after getting kills, as well as kind of like dethroning the TCG comp like when they actually got the kills. They didn't really like make them count in terms of conquest, right? Once they had them down. But yeah, those were some great games. I enjoyed those a lot. But yeah.
So coming off as tournament players yourselves, talking a bit more about the outcome in regards to MIM and the way they played during those qualifiers, they had to, and again, to not understate this, MIM had to play a lot of games, like almost consecutively going through to the grand finals there too. So having possibly played rather in longer tournaments yourselves, do you think that it might have just been at that point fatigue getting to them in the grand finals? Because we saw them, specifically what I really noticed was that in the semifinals, or rather in the upper bracket finals, MIM played some really good games. Those were probably the closer games, but unfortunately once we got towards the grand finals, it just seemed like they unfortunately just weren't performing as well. What are your guys' thoughts on what might have led to those sort of causes there?
I don't think that's too much of a factor. I mean, if you look at those teams, pretty much anyone who plays in these teams, when they practice, we practice for like several hours at a time, just non-stop playing. It's not so much that the tournament's drawn out. I think like it's more towards the better team is reacting to what the other team is doing, and whoever adapts more quickly is going to get a larger lead.
Anyone else?
I would like to add that I talked to all those players, and Meta was exhausted after that time. So after so many consecutive games.
Yeah, I feel for
in the
it.
end, it was a matter of both. TCG managed to adjust better to their opponents and to abuse their mistakes. Like Levin did a really great job there. You could see that he was like kind of carrying the team, but while the rest was bunkering. He got his decap, and the moment he decapped, they started reinforcing this node, playing on 3 nodes. And the moment they started doing it, it was like a 4v5 on 2 nodes for TCG, while they had to defend their home point, and they lost those 4v5 skirmishes, not skirmishes, team fights. And yeah, that's like that happened every game. They get this decap, reinforcing, then they're 4v5 because their ally still has to watch their home point on this meta ally, and TCG is gonna get out as a winner of the 4v5 every single time.
Yeah, and from our perspective as well, like we made it meta. They play very interesting with the res bot. Basically, they have a Mercy rune Spirit res Ranger, which does 0 damage in a team fight, but it has the res, you know, and we were kind of stupid. Like we counted. We had, I think, 8 reses. They had 20. Or what was it, Zap? Something like this.
Really?
and yes. So
I lost the statistics, but
yeah, they double our reses. You understand? And this is because of that res bot, basically. And that is also a big gameplay issue we did, like a gameplay mistake. I mean, we instead of, we know that we will down him because he doesn't have damage. We will win this fight, but instead of we pop CDs like in a regular fight, but when you look at it, we should have like kept, you know, some stability. We should have had 100% stomp, because he will res even so single-handedly if that guy gets his whatever off in down state. So we you need to play a different game kind of when you face a res bot like. And we don't have engineers and Ellis who can complete, or engies and necro, whatever, to nuke that downstate that hard, you know. So we also did the mistake of actually not wasting, but using the CDs unnecessarily for other CC in the fight, which we anyways would have won. It just would have took a little longer, and we could have had a stomp, 100% stomp. Stuff like this, they just got 3 reses off. because of
Yeah,
this. So
to be
we
honest,
let them.
I think a battle standard warrior would have done better than this ranger. Like they lack counter pressure.
Maybe. I'm not gonna go in too far on this.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna. Yeah.
It was a shame that it was only 3 teams participating. Also, like now we have such a nice competition, and there was only 3 teams in the like biggest prize pool stuff tournament.
Yeah, it was sad that Cheese Mode had the.
But not just Cheese Mode, also the other teams. Look how many good teams can form up. Like teams are always strong.
I think part of what happened here is because the first season, as I'm calling it, of WTS with the whole TOG sign up process and all that came up like way too quickly, I think, for a lot of teams to form. And I think it really only started picking up in the recent weeks here. Now that we've had the finals and that we've had the good announcement of the Go4 Cups, I think that as it moves in towards the second and third seasons or whatever they're called of the WTS, I think that competition will really start to pick up there as well, with these Go4 Cups really boosting it up. I think it was just season 1. It was a bit unfortunate because it was so squeezed together. But hopefully going into season 2, I think a lot of that will change. Do you guys agree with that, or?
Yeah, I hope teams have more time. They know there's stuff coming. They're forming. But also this first weekend we missed it because we got the announcement like 4 days before the Sunday cash tournament starts.
Yeah.
And we are still not we still don't have a full roster. Today we had Rom as a sub, for example, when we scrimmed, and yeah, we're still looking for a 5th.
All right, so moving away from the EU qualifiers, and once again, by the way, for anybody who is not already familiar with what happened, the Civilized Gentlemen came on first. That is the team that Rom is a part of here, which means that that team is going to be heading to Beijing in just under a month now, to be playing for that $50,000 prize pool at the WTS Season 1 Finals against the North American team, the Abjured, as well as the 2 Chinese teams. But we'll talk about that in just a couple seconds here. Moving on to the NA qualifiers, which have a bit of fog, I'll say, around them, due to the interesting things that happened. But from what we know, and Cade was actually watching those games, so Cade can comment on this as well as 5Gauge. For what it was, and again, we'll talk about the shenanigans in a second, but for what it was, thoughts on the outcome of the NA side of things before we jump into the shenanigans too much. Just in general, what are our thoughts on the way? I think
just overall it was kind of upsetting to all the teams participating. It wasn't really something that anyone felt was, I guess, it's hard to be articulate, but a fair outcome in a sense. Overall, I think in the large kind of scene, just taking a step back and looking at it, I think the same team would have won regardless of what happened, but it's really unfortunate. And I think one thing people need to realize is that ANET really had nothing to do with it, and I think Grouch and the rest of ArenaNet kind of made the right calls in what was going on.
Yeah, I just want to echo the same thoughts as Cade just did a second ago. I feel like we had to compromise big time on the WTS qualifiers for North America, but I mean, just the way it had to be ran with the way that the tournament worked out with the unfortunate things that happened, it was definitely a compromise in retrieving the outcome. But I think that the right team won, for sure. I think that the stronger team won. So it wasn't like it was invalid. But at the same time, too, when you have so many disconnects, and I'll get into the shenanigans a little bit, when so many disconnects are happening, there's only so many fair ways to do it in terms of both teams are honored and both teams are have equal footing in the match when people are disconnecting left and right. So it's difficult, but I think it was handled well.
All right. So now that we've kind of talked about the outcomes here, so just for clarification purposes, more to kind of get this out of the way and give people a narrative as to what happened on the day of, basically what the hell happened. So I'll leave that one to Cade and 5Gauge as well. I can also elaborate a little bit on it if necessary, but I'll leave that question to you two guys.
There was a series of very timely disconnects on certain teams at certain points in the game that shifted the favor towards another team. That's basically like the gist of it, and there's really nothing you can do or nothing anyone can do to prove what happened, but the general consensus and the the looks of it, if you actually analyze it, is DDoS from someone.
5Gauge, pretty much.
Yeah,
hit the
I
nail
mean,
on the
that's
head.
the way it has to be, right? It was a series of timely disconnects that happened at very specific points in the game to advantage one team. It seemed very, very contemplated and very direct and very like purposefully done. But that's all we can really say. There's nothing else we can extrapolate from that at all. So we have to leave it at that.
And it was pretty much confirmed that it was not issues with the servers, because there was a lot of people talking about that on the forums and whatnot. I think ArenaNet had checked on that multiple times and confirmed that it was not server issues. It was all on the client's end, and due to the odd nature that a lot of those disconnects happened, a lot of people were pretty confident that there was some malicious activities going on. So it was a bit unfortunate, but I think, again, I made a post in the forums about this as well. I think the biggest lesson that we can hopefully take away from that event there is...
Get proxy IPs.
Well, that's one lesson, but more in the fact that is just that people are willing to do these things now, which is an unfortunate thing, but is also somewhat a good thing, because now we know people actually are playing in events and care about these events enough to know that they actually want to try and do these things, because before this didn't really happen in TOG or any of the TOLs because it was all for in-game prizing, but now that there's actually big money on the line, people are going to try and do these things. This was a very new experience. DDoSes had never been an issue before in any tournaments, so I think, like I said, the biggest lesson is just now people need to be aware that this is a very serious possibility, and people need to kind of defend themselves, basically. I think that was the biggest lesson I learned, and that's the thing I'm telling pretty much any player that asks me about it right now as to what the heck happened. Any other thoughts on it? Or
I mean, it's fairly easy for someone to do that, but at the same time, it's also fairly easy to protect yourself against it. So I think, like, just people just do a standard Google search and find out.
It's a wake-up call, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. It should be from now on, now that the precedent's been set. I feel like it should be on every player to protect themselves individually. Of course, that does not mean that it's okay. Just start some kind of like DDoSing campaign or anything like that. It's just it's a very unfortunate precedent that's been set, is all I'll say about that. But I feel like we've learned a lot from it, and it's not going to happen in the same way, in the same scale that it did ever again. So
yeah, just to touch on that tournament took over 8 hours to finish, and it was quite a grueling experience for everyone involved.
Yep, but it's all over now, and hopefully we can move on from that. That's, like I said, is the biggest thing. If we spend too much time talking about it, then whoever did it is probably just going to do it again because he got the attention he deserved. So I didn't really want to spend too much time talking about who did it, and that's why we won't spend too much time talking about who did it. And
I don't think that really matters.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But again, at the same time, for anybody who was not aware of the outcome of the North American Finals, it was the Absurd, of which 5Gauge is a part of, so congratulations to 5Gauge as well as to the rest of your team. That is the team that will be going onwards to China once again to the Beijing Finals to play against not only the Civilized Gentlemen, but against the two Chinese teams, Sala and Prime. And that wraps up.
By the way,
go ahead.
Yeah, sorry for interrupting, but do we know anything about the Chinese teams? More than that, few things we saw.
We're going to get into that in just a second, Rom. So.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So moving on to our next topic, we're going to talk about the finals. We're going to talk about each of the teams. What does everybody think about each of these teams and why? And I think we'll leave the Chinese teams towards kind of the end of this question here, and we can talk a little bit about what each of us may or may not know about those Chinese teams and the threat that they may or may not pose at the grand final. So start off with TCG. What's everybody's thoughts on TCG's performance and how they could kind of come out here in the grand finals?
Well, I think that TCG has constantly demonstrated that they have the best foundation for teamwork of, if not any team that we've seen in Guild Wars 2. So the baseline level of expectations we have for TCG is super high right off the bat. And they may have had some like rocky starts in tournaments lately due to other unforeseen reasons, but I think at the end of the day here, that foundation and the expectations we have of that team to do well is still very high. So expectations are still quite up there, I'd say.
I'd agree with that for the most part, but I would say that I think the last weekly and kind of just the finals of the WTS qualifiers will kind of get them maybe practicing a little more because their teamwork isn't quite where it should be.
Blackjack, thoughts on TCG?
It's difficult to say how they will do against an A team because it's different meta. They're practicing when they're playing against comps with Guardian, where you can do this rotation things, where you can pull this off, the Mesmer Thief outnumber situation. But against teams with high pressure, like the A teams, if you actually leave the fight, your Guardian will end up being dead, and it shuts down rotations. It really does. I still didn't get the A meta yet 100%. I don't understand why they're running like this specific comp with Necro and Thief, but maybe they can explain later. It's interesting, but it's gonna be two different metas facing each other, and yeah, with so much damage both teams have. TCG has this one-shot combo with Mesmer Thief, and then they have a bunker who can stall pretty long against such shit tons of damage. It's easy to screw it up, really easy. And then the pressure is really high, the expectations are high. It's going to be interesting.
Rom, how you feeling about your team in the grand finals?
We're gonna give you a show.
Is that it?
All you need to hear.
You're gonna that's it?
I mean, I'm not gonna go
no secrets?
deep into I'm not gonna go deep into this. I mean, of course we are thinking it's money on the line. It's not about an ESL weekly or a Go4 weekly now. We're talking actual money, you know, and so it's a different story, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Okay, understand. Okay, so once again, moving on to the NA team, what's everybody think of the Abjure? How are they going to perform in these finals? What are the kind of ups and downs of their comp? How does everybody think of them? The players on the team. What is everybody's general thoughts on the Abjure?
I think it's a pretty strong team, but there's definitely areas of improvement considering that two of their players just kind of jumped into it and they have to rework a lot with that.
Yeah, it's pretty much a known thing that Toker and myself just jumped into the Abjure's team roster just recently, a couple weeks ago before the qualifiers, and we've been doing our best to play every possible opportunity against the best teams we can get, just to get acclimated and become the strongest we can get. But there's only so much that you can achieve in a month or 2 months, right? As a team, right? I think that it's definitely something we're working forward, or working to as fast as we possibly can, considering circumstances. So we do have stuff to improve on. That's a given, right? But I think that we're doing quite well for the amount of teamwork we've been able to get just in the recent couple weeks. So I'm pretty happy with what we're doing, but we have definitely room to improve, like Kate said.
Blackjack, I think you had a couple things to touch on there with the NA team, so if you want to go ahead and answer next.
The NA teams, I think they don't really have the opportunity to practice against the EU meta comp, while TCG has opportunity to practice on ESL weeklies and on Sunday the Go4 Cup against all kind of strategies. And when the A teams face each other, it's a completely different game. It's completely different, and if they start, if they're beginning a match with their mentality of what they're expecting to happen, it might fail. And I still see Ostrich X playing double pistol, but if you ever face Mesmer Thief, you don't want to miss shield or defensive cooldowns, like to avoid this burst, to survive the burst, because it's like a one-trick pony. But if they manage to give, if they manage to burst you down, you have a hard time, and I don't see this double pistol thing working at all, on EU at least. Maybe they want to try to adapt a bit to the meta.
I think that's a double-edged sword, though, because both Mesmer and Thief are really susceptible to the condies of an NG, and having that pistol offhand, you can get burning on an entire team relatively easily.
Yeah, sure, but are you going to catch them?
I'm just saying, it works both ways.
Yeah, it works both ways, that's for sure, but they have more invis, and they're the initiators because of their invisibility and stuff. I'm just wondering how that meta works.
The strength, though. of NG, Ellie.
Yeah, I know. I'm just wondering, like, the EU meta, you're bunkering middle, you're defending home point with Ellie, and Mesmer Thief trying to outnumber. What is the idea behind the NA meta? Can anyone explain this?
I'll take a crack at it. So the idea behind the NA meta is essentially to play for 3 points and be extremely efficient at winning 2v2s and 3v3s. And there's a huge advantage that the NA comps have when a Necro rotates in and just obliterates, for example, a tanky character like an Ellie or Guardian. And killing bunkers, busting them with high pressure from multiple people is a pretty big thing that NA comps have going for them, right? For example, like Ram said, the Guardian, you can't just leave him behind, right? He will die like with pretty good time, in a pretty good time rather. And the standard Ultra Seculing bunker as well too doesn't deal with Condis like quite as well as the Virtues one does as well too. It's just a different damage type as well that the NA comps bring, like tons of hybrid conditions as well too. So I mean, I'm not going to say they're condition focused really, but having one Condi NG and a Selly NG and Ellie's with lots of burning can bust a bunker pretty fast. And just ruining team fights and bunkers alone is like a pretty good way to get the match kind of on tilt for the enemy team. And it's kind of all about snowballing off of kills pretty much as well too. It's a very big deathmatch component in the NA game. But we'll definitely be able to elaborate on that more as the time comes and there's better comparisons to say, but that's all I'll say.
I'd like to touch on that a bit. A large part of it is NA doesn't really like using Guardians. So you get a Guardian, I guess the kind of old way of thinking about it is you put a Guardian in a position where it's outnumbered and it kind of holds those people there. But it's getting to the point where if you're in an even fight, say a 2v2, and you're with a Guardian, the other team that doesn't have a Guardian is more than most likely going to win that 2v2 because the Guardian essentially is a glorified 1v1 or 1v2, sorry. And what happens is if you put the right people in the right spots, then you're going to end up making the Guardian feel very kind of useless, not very it's really hard to res against a Thief and NG and a Necro. Regardless of who's there, if one of those classes are there, it's going to be really hard to res in a 2v2. So you're going to be outnumbered in the sense that your Guardian isn't doing very much, and if you can kind of keep track of their Thief and their Mesmer, you're going to out-rotate them and you can push them to spawn.
Yeah, I see the opportunities of both comps, and it's like they have to kill the Necro, for example, first, so they don't get pressured too hard. It's really a thing of positioning also. Forcing the 3 nodes leaves your home point open, and I don't know if you can take a 4v5 on, if they're going home and middle, and you have to 4v5 them on those 2 nodes, you can pretty easily force a team fight.
That's just it, right? It's about whether the teams can force a team fight on one end or force skirmishes on the other end, right? Just having that, enforcing your will is going to be the biggest part in that matchup for sure. So it really does come down to the team as well too. The comps are very different, like almost polar opposites in what you're aiming to find, or aiming to achieve rather, and whichever team can enforce their will win, pretty much, in my opinion.
Yeah. We have this in the EU right now. We have the traditional EU meta. We have some teams pretty offensive, a lot of damage, and then there are teams with a mixture, like no Guardian, but still a Thief to decap, where you're you can do both games. You can do the 2-node game with the decapper, and you can try to play on 3 nodes and force the skirmishing. There are all the variations right now.
Yeah.
It's really interesting what's going to win there. But I really think it's about player intelligence and rotations still, and even there's so many factors that, I don't know, just player quality is a factor too.
Yeah, that's a given. For sure,
it's just too complicated actually to say, yeah, this works, this strategy is better.
This game is not like Dota 2 where you have 1-hour games. This is a game of maximum 15 minutes, and when you come to an NA meta versus our comp, for example, I wouldn't say a match takes usually longer than 10 minutes. So imagine 10 minutes. This is some severe quick thinking, and it's a lot of decision making in a very short time. And this is where I see why I actually like it was a lot. It's about this mentality thing. It's about you must keep it together. If you do not, you will make too many mistakes. In the end, maybe you can get carried so far, but look at the second WTS. You know, this is the first. It will be really funny to see the second one. I can promise that we will see 10 more teams arise from both sides, probably.
I think Guild Wars 2 is very unique in the fact that you have to constantly keep yourself on edge in that game, whereas I think...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's about the day form,
yeah,
you know? It's like
MOBAs,
I said on the TOL1 even, you know? We lost versus Monks in Team Q. Everybody said, oof, you're gonna lose. Monks are gonna beat you. It was like 70-30, and we 3-0'd them in the finals. It's about the day form. It's about how you pull it together. And if we do our A game on the A day, you know, brilliant.
I definitely agree with him on that. But I think people take team Qs and kind of scrims.
Yeah. I mean, where are you allowed?
That's your kind of playground to test things, see, you know, what
exactly.
mistakes you make, what you can do, and people, you know, they assume that you're tryharding all the time, that you're just like playing to win, and you know, it's not always the case. Sometimes you're just kind of playing to get a little bit of synergy going. You're not actually focusing on the initial outcome or the end outcome of the game, but you're focusing on the initial fight with whoever you're with or a certain strategy. And it's just, there's a lot more depth into the game, even though it's 10 minutes, than people realize.
Yeah, exactly. And like, it was a bit, you know, like you say, oh, what happened, guys? You lost Go4 last Sunday. Guys, what happened? You know, we didn't even use a Mesmer, which is a severe difference in our entire mentality. We've been using it for so long, and then we don't use it all of a sudden, and then we use something that we barely have, I don't know, maybe 5 team kills in total without the Mesmer. You know, like, it's a different game. You turn into just one swap, even with one guy from the other one, is a big swap. Yeah. Maybe you can pug and win. Okay, maybe you do it. But in general, you know, it's a huge thing. At least for me, you know, for us. And maybe not for everybody, but for me it really feels like Guild Wars is like this. You can have some lucky wins with a pug as well, and yeah, you are so good, and why did you do this and that? But it's all in the end about, you know, the end tournament, the final game, you know. And more than that we can't really say, you know. We'll see in China, and we'll see in the next Go4s every week. It's gonna be fun.
It's interesting too that, you know, the changes in it. And I think that's something that a lot of people, when they kind of just like take a quick glance at Guild Wars 2's PvP combat, and they think like, oh, it's just like typical MMO combat in regards to like, you know, obviously there's the dodge mechanic and things such as that. But I think I've noticed a lot of people like on Reddit will not like instantly dismiss the game because they see like MMO combat with targeting and whatnot, and like, oh, it's just like World of Warcraft. It's this spammy sort of game that like we can't comprehend it. But it's like combat's only scratching the surface. There's so much more to it, and how you have to rotate with your certain team comp, how you have to play the game overall with your certain team comp, so much more just beyond the combat that a lot of people kind of don't get, that I think it adds, like Cade was saying earlier, I think it adds just so much more depth to the game, and it's really interesting once you kind of dig your way into it. So
I honestly don't think that anyone has actually dug their way into it. There's a lot of there's a lot of unexplored options in terms of possible outcomes to games, the possible scenarios that no one has really touched on because it's viewed as unviable.
Wait, excuse me, say that again, Cade.
It's just like no one's really scratched the surface of what's possible, because everyone to branch out of what's considered unviable and test it, because
exactly. And that I also especially I think on NA, I think
NA is a lot worse than EU in the sense that when people lose games, they break up.
Yeah, exactly.
They stick together and kind of figure things out.
Yeah, and also I think the more when we watch the TOL, I'm not going to go into the differences now because we have similarities as much. But like if we saw the TOL forums, for example, after the first one, we saw EU was like, oh yeah, congratulations, good job to all the teams, blah blah blah. You know, this is cool, you know. And then you saw any mentality, just negativity. Like it only complain. It was only, dude, look, 2 warriors, shit, they are OP. Nerf warrior now, go. Nerf Hambo, you know. We had so many counters. We could out-rotate these, you know. But people don't try, you know. They want to keep going with what they see is the strongest. But there is always a counter. That's why I love Guild Wars. It's like Guild Wars 1 still, even though it's slightly less about the pure counter like in Guild Wars 1, but it's still discounted. Like people, yeah, exactly. We didn't scratch the entire surface. It's so much more. I have so many ideas in this game still that I couldn't even pull off because of, you know, different factors. Like, it is so much more to it, and I can tell everybody this is not some. Or people are saying, "Oh, this is easy to play," and "Oh, motherfucker, they," you know, it's so much that we didn't find yet. So come on, NA, don't just copy, you know.
I also think it's not just about counters. It's just like it's also about reactions, and people kind of try to do the same strategy against the same, like against everything. Not even the same thing. They do the same strategy.
Exactly.
And it's not that you have to change your comp even. It's just that if you decide to rotate to a different place, you're going to put yourself in a better matchup or a better position where you can actually deal with what the other team has.
Yeah, and then you guys, you use now comp A, all right? Oh shit, it killed the B and C that is the current meta right now, you know? The A comp killed both of them. But C kills, but D, he kills fucking A. And then, but A still kills the other two comps, so it's still... and even A may lose to B, even though it's a counter comp because they used it incorrectly. So it's like it's all that, these interesting factors what makes the game so lovely, guys. Must appreciate it, you know. I love this game, you know. We keep coming back to this.
I think there is, like I said anyway, going back to the point I was trying to make earlier, I think there's a lot of kind of misconceptions about what Guild Wars 2 PvP is. I actually saw the other day, this Total Biscuit, I think, posted a video. What's up, Fagage?
Oh, sorry.
Are you looking at the Twitch chat?
No, I'm actually just...
You're
maybe a little bit.
I think you're the PvP community's new sweetheart now.
Yeah. I think we'll talk about that when we get our own minute.
But anyway, actually, I saw Total Biscuit. He made a video like 2 days ago, and he kind of just like made this 40-minute video that was just like, this is what StarCraft is, and it was right before the WTS, not WTS, WCS that started today over at BlizzCon. I think that would actually, I'm kind of thinking about doing this now, about maybe making a video like that, because that's actually, like I said, there's a lot of misconceptions, and I think it'd be cool if someone or some people could like get this kind of correlation together to show everyone this is what Guild Wars 2 PvP is, and just like throw it out there straight. It'd be an interesting idea. Kind of thinking about it right now. But anyway, moving onwards from that, getting back, and we kind of just had our, I think we kind of just had our NA versus EU meta discussion there. I wanted to say that towards the end, but I think we just had a pretty good talk on that. Did we want to go? Was there any other points people wanted to make on kind of NA versus EU meta before we kind of move back over towards WTS talk, or have we kind of set our piece on the meta differentials for now?
I mean, like, the word meta is kind of odd for NA because you honestly don't see that many people running the same comp. There's a lot of different comps running around. I don't think NA actually has a set meta compared to EU, where you see Guardian, D, and Mesmer always, and an Ellie.
It's not always. There are teams picking up double Ellie, Engineer, like they're trying to compensate a Guardian with a second Ellie. Like for team support, then you need that sturdy body on point. You pick a warrior, so you can kind of compensate for Guardian with this and have your team fight potential, 1 point potential, and still got the damage of an A meta. It's like, for example, what Cheese Mod is trying, what we are trying to do. It's like the thought behind this.
There's just a big difference. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say there's a big difference between NA and EU in terms of the importance they place on resurrecting. Like, not even all comps in NA even run like someone who can reliably res at all, right? I mean, for example, you have the comp that Absurd runs. We're very light on reviving utilities, for example. We don't have any revive utilities. We have Elixir S, the engineers can toss, and Ellie's can mist away in stealth, and we can get a revive. We have Shadow Refuge. I mean, that's about it, right? We have good stealth when people go down. But in terms of Mercy runes, like Spike Resing, stuff like that, we're very light on that. It's because in the NA meta, like, the downcleave is so ridiculous that it becomes almost counterproductive to doing. Like, half the time. Oh, go ahead, Kate.
NA is pretty much a group race. It's like, each team gets someone down, it's the first person to kill the other one that's going to push over the fight, most likely. I don't know if you agree with that, but it's kind of down to whoever cleaves the other team first.
It comes down to that a lot. It does, for sure.
I always try to go for Russies. Good guy, kid. doesn't work out very much.
All right, guys. So, any other thoughts on NA versus EU, or I think we're good to move on now?
I'll leave it at that.
Blackjack, anything you want to touch on, or?
I think you can still out-sustain the NA comps with more allies and stuff. It's like we've been fighting 3 allies, Necro, Engie in the ESL weekly final, and it was an interesting comp. We had a hard time. It just needs a lot of focus damage, because every cleave you do is just gonna... you don't see it. The allies are just sustaining themselves, and you have to focus the target really hard in order to get a kill. You need to be aware of their cooldowns, of their stun break, and to see them to death. There's no way you can get somebody down or low because of cleave. There's so many options. We will see in the future.
Alright, cool. So moving on from that, guys, heading back over towards WTS discussion here for a little bit. It was just still to wrap up our talks on that. We're going to talk a little bit about China, because China, again, is still a very interesting thing that's currently in play that could hurt or help. Really either could really hurt or help either TCG or the Abjured, considering how little is known about those teams. So kind of based off of your own experience, based off of anything you two or you four may know about these teams, what are your thoughts on China?
Sala's been running on NA
at
nighttime pretty often the past week, and I mean, they're not bad. I think it's really hard to judge in terms of Chinese connection to NA serious mechanics, but their rotations are pretty good, and I think it'll be interesting to see how far they've closed the gap since Gamescom to now.
Yeah, still very much a wild card. I think that's a big reason, because we don't have very much coverage of the Chinese teams and what they're doing in any games that are easily seen on NA. If we increase the coverage up a little bit, I think that we'd have a much more informed opinion of that. I'd like to see the games more. If anyone has any suggestions where you can see those, I'd be definitely interested in finding them too. I haven't really looked very hard, but
I'd be interested in seeing Abjured in WTS finals.
Is that...
yeah. There you go, right?
Rom doesn't care about the Chinese. He just
Rom's
he wants a name.
Now, China is always a wild card. It's always gonna be it. We're gonna have to analyze them on a personal level once we see them in, look deep into their eyes. What are you running, a turret or decap engine?
When was the game released in China? How much time did they actually have right now?
Beta, it had been in beta, if I remember correctly. It was in a very heavy beta since March. I know that a lot of Team Sala specifically played on the NA servers. Yeah, they played on NA pretty actively since launch. Obviously, they were at a hindrance because of that 300-400 ping that'll exist when they play from China to the States. But they have been playing for a long time. Team Prime is probably the biggest mystery, because I really, besides maybe 2 of them that were on the Gamescom team, I really don't know anything about those guys. But I do recognize Sala as being one of the teams that played pretty heavily on NA since launch.
I have a small question. I'm trying to think of when you casted those games. I remember the last game Sala lost to a team. Was that Team Prime?
I honestly don't know, because I didn't know the names of the teams that day.
Because I remember the last match Sala lost, and it was to another team, and I'm just okay, if Sala's going, what happened to that other team?
I think Sala took 2nd place in the actual Chinese qualifiers too, because that was. Let me go on Reddit real quick. I have the post saved. I'm trying to get the info.
What will be the structure of those World Tournament Series finals?
Don't know yet.
How many games will there be between those teams? The more games it is, the more likely I say China is gonna have a bad time.
So, correction, by the way, Sal did actually win the Chinese qualifiers. They took 1st place. Team Prime took 2nd place there. But because obviously the WTS ruling, both the teams are going to Beijing. But anyway, back to Blackjack's point there. They haven't actually given those details out yet, I don't believe. So we don't know yet. My guess would be that it's going to be double elimination, but I don't know. 100% sure. That's my guess, though, based on the way that the qualifiers went, both in China as well as based on the EU and NA qualifiers. I'm going to assume it's a 14 double elimination tournament.
Okay.
But yeah, it should be interesting to see how the Chinese teams play out. Like I said, not a lot is known about them, so But I know Salah, like we said, Salah has been making some appearances in the North American team queue in the late night, so they are definitely looking to improve, as China's competition levels overall aren't necessarily like super duper high, just because like they don't have a leaderboard, and they have like Skyhammer in team queue and a whole host of other issues on the Chinese servers. So I think that's part of the reason why they're playing here on NA at the moment, is to try and like, oh, let's play against some teams that are good.
Can I interrupt you for a second there? Have you observed the Chinese Skyhammer meta? Do you know what builds they play in Skyhammer and what kind of strategies they use? Is it all centered around knocking people down holes while they're in stealth, or?
You can't even do that anymore, so no.
Well, you can now, but
well,
I mean, you can still get around that. But
you can if well.
I still play script.
Well, so here's the thing: is like, yeah, like they play it in like their team queue, but like they don't use it in tournaments though, or at least I don't think they do. They used it in like one tournament, so like it was in like the launch tournament, but beyond that, I don't think they've ever had Skyhammer in the actual tournament rotation.
Okay. So it's mostly untested when it comes to tournaments, the Skyhammer meta in China, so guess we'll never know.
Skyhammer meta.
Such a filthy word, to be honest. I played solo queue occasionally, and yeah, I won't even get started on Skyhammer really, but you know.
Just to start a discussion here, out of purely out of the wind question, how, what would your reaction be to finding out that Skyhammer is in the map rotation for the WTS final? This is a question for 5-Gauge and Round specifically. How would you guys feel if you were told that like 2 weeks before?
I'd be sad I'm not going.
I'm an engineer, right? So
well, I mean, it's good for you,
okay,
but like overall for your team and for TCG as well. How would you guys feel about that? Just out of a wild curiosity.
I think I'll Seth would rage quit.
Rom?
I don't know. I would probably, I don't know, go a Rampage Warrior, maybe? Kill a bit.
Rom doesn't have a problem with it. Rom's just thinking. Rom's thinking to win there. Alright, so cool. So moving away from that, let's move on to our next topic here. Give me 1 second. I think that concludes our WTS discussion. So move on to our next thing, which is mainly for Blackjack, and the news this week is CM is back again. So
yeah, we are trying to reform because there's so much competition now. We want to be part of it. We all love this game. Like, we couldn't get Ezron and Lord Azura back, unfortunately, because they're stuck to another game, like that's called Smite. And Ezron is still not happy with his Ranger because of the balance issues. Like, Ranger is really underrepresented in the current game, and there is a reason for it, and he didn't enjoy his class. He's not willing to reroll. He lost interest in this game, and Lord Azura, I don't know why he doesn't want to play anymore. He just thinks the game is boring in general. But Hiba is back, Frey is back, I am back. I was there all the time. Yeah, we got Lipion. He was our warrior all the time, but we weren't really using him since he isn't 18, and he was like he wasn't even allowed to play in the tournaments in the past, but now he can actually participate. That's a good deal. That's why we have way more teams now than in the World Tournament Series, in those Sunday Cups, the Go4. And yeah, we are looking for a 5th at the moment. We hope that we can play on Sunday and that we will find someone. Not sure if it will be like the final pick or if we just take a placeholder. Team-wise, I'm playing Elementalist, Lipion is Warrior, then Hiba is Engineer. Those 3 classes are really strong on their own. And you can force skirmishes with this, you can stay on a point, you can support each other, you have mobility. It's like a pretty solid core. And we're just looking for then Frey can play Ellie and Warrior. So we might stack a class, actually, again. People might hate us for this. But it's just what we play, and why would we just switch around to classes that we are not fine with? And as we already said, there are so many options in strategy. It doesn't really matter what you play if you use it correctly. If you, I don't know, give a game the structure you want, you can pull it off. And yeah, we're just looking for a 5th. Might be a Thief, maybe a more sustained class.
I was gonna say, it sounds like you're in the market for a Thief, is what it sounds like based on your comp right now, considering you have 4 on-point fighters.
This week we were playing double Ellie, Warrior, NG Thief. It worked quite well, but when you can see the ESL weekly final, 55 HP Monks was running triple Ellie. Usually they have double Ellie Warrior, a Necro, and Engineer, and they're just going for home and far, for example, and they shut down your Thief rotations, because their home point defender at the same moment is watching the middle, which is your point, and they are going for the far point. That way you can't rotate at all, and like Ellie, Necro, Engineer, Warrior has more teamfight potential than come with a Thief.
Why doesn't the Thief take the 1v1?
Which, on the far point?
Yeah.
Why would Thief take a 1v1 against a DD Ellie?
You can kill a DDLA on a Thief.
Yeah, you can also mess up and lose a teamfight, and it takes quite a while. It's not like a 100% win, it's actually in the favor of DD Ellies, at least in EU, I don't know.
I think that's dependent on the players.
Yeah, but the players in EU actually, on EU the DD Ellies have the upper hand. Against us, if maybe, I don't know. It just, if there's a lot of damage with Necro, Engie, and Warrior, and Ellie, and stuff like this, if this is 4 class in a team fight, if you're gonna end up with 3 players there, you lose anyways. There's no chance you're gonna stand against this. And then all relies on the Thief duel. I don't know. I don't think that's a smart decision. We just felt like, I don't know, stuck in this team fight on our home point. Because they don't have mobility, but they make up for it for giving us middle, and their home point defenders watching our middle. So they don't need to decap. They don't need to decap our fast mobility class.
What do you
that's what I felt in our. If we reform CM and we pick a Thief as last, that's like our slight disadvantage, but it shines against Mesmer Thief Guardian because you're free to rotate, you have so much room and easy targets.
What are you guys looking to bring to the table when you compare yourselves to a lot of the other EU teams currently in the mix at the moment?
What do you bring to the table?
Like,
what do you mean exactly?
Like, sort of like, what are you guys looking to do differently, or what are you guys looking to do better than any of the current EU teams?
What are you going to do better? We don't want a class, or we won't have any players that is like a Resport or some useless guy standing around. I don't know. Like, I feel like, it's really boring to have a Guardian who's just standing there, waiting for the fight to pass and rest someone eventually. I don't know. And we want more pressure than other teams, while... Like, we will try to find the middle way, you know? We want more pressure than other teams, while still being able to out-sustain them, and...
It's not a coincidence that it's called cheese mode, alright?
Yeah, it's not a
coincidence. We made it because I single-handedly found Hambo.
Yeah, exactly. You did.
Ran double. No, but yeah, it's the idea of it. What he's trying to say. Basically, you can rotate with whoever to whatever point, and win that 2v2. Whatever.
You're free. We want to be free to rotate everyone to have. That makes the rotations much easier. Then we still have the dual and 2v2 potential, and we still want a lot of damage. The damage part, I don't know yet. With the Thief, it's actually fine, because you just need to get some. You have to force some cooldowns and he can spike it down. But it's hard to rest then.
We shouldn't go too deep into this. NA will look very surprised.
I can't really tell because we don't have a 5th member yet, and it will also depend like what can we find, what player is actually available, and what class is he playing. And we won't force anyone who can't play class in a Thief, for example. So it's not 100% to say yet. It's just we've proved in the past, for example, the whole April 15th patch, we were like undefeated in Team Q during the whole patch, and we have really strong individual players, and we will make a strong comp for sure.
Alright, sounds very good. Once again, guys, Cheese Mode is back, and they'll be looking to perform in a lot of the upcoming cups. Be sure to check them out. Beyond that, guys, that is starting to bring the stream to a close here. So before we do so, once again, we're at the part of the stream where we ask our guests if they have any topics that they would like to bring up at all here before we end up closing it. So, guys, is there any topic specifically that you guys would like to bring up for the rest of the group here to discuss before we end up closing the stream?
Question for Jay. How many more viewers?
Sorry, what was that?
You cut out.
How many more viewers are you gonna get with the webcam than without one?
Oh well, I don't know. I don't know if I'm a big fan of like webcamming, to be honest. So.
But everyone wants to see your face.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if that's totally a positive thing, you know. So. Time will tell, but I don't know. I'm not big on streaming these days, anyways. But we'll see. Time will tell, Cade.
make sure that I get that notification.
Oh, definitely. I'll send you an email. Yeah, no problem.
All right, guys. So once again, any other topics that we want to bring up here?
Yes, since this whole episode is called meta, there are not only meta comps, but there are also meta builds. And it is a topic a bit older now, but all meta builds rely on sigils. And that's just one thing I wanted to repeat there and to keep this alive, because I'm really annoyed of it. I don't know how the others feel.
Like fire air signets, you're saying? Or?
Yeah, airfire, Doom Battle, and all the stuff. And people like Warrior now is not in a weak spot, but if you would take away the sigils from a Warrior, he's like almost useless. I don't know. So I felt like they made the mistake in balancing Warrior around sigils, and instead of cutting sigils and balancing the classes around themselves.
Anyone else have thoughts on that?
I think that I agree, and we do have a pretty sigil-heavy game type at the moment. Like, sigils and runes are a big part of the builds that we run. But I mean, that's a design choice that ANET consciously made. Like, it might not be agreeable, but at least it's, I'd say, somewhat working right now. At least there's diversity. It's not like everyone runs Airfire or everyone runs something else. Like, there's 3 or 4 different combinations that have kind of surfaced that are decent. And as well, there's a lot of other options too that are still really good. So I think there's like a good enough pool of sigils and runes that are like up there. So I feel like it's not like totally AIDS in terms of being like a balance nightmare. But at the same time, like, yeah, like the combos seem pretty cheesy sometimes. So I understand totally where you're coming from, Blackjack. I understand. I don't know.
I do have to like touch on what he said. I feel like the meta now is one of the most balanced that we've been in. I mean, it's just like I enjoy playing. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different viable options.
The balance between the classes is not bad. Just maybe Ranger is a bit lacking. I don't know if you feel the same way.
I actually think Ranger is pretty strong.
I haven't seen too many Rangers yet. At least no one could make it work properly.
I think underutilized would be the correct Ranger at the
I
moment.
think people don't know how to manage their pet.
I agree.
It's not only about...
And the pet's a big part, man.
Of course it's a big part, but it's not about the pet. Come on.
I don't know. I think like if you can manage the season...
Wolf Spider, what do you want to use? What do you want to use? The dog?
I mean, like, if you use both dogs and you know how to use the knockdowns, like, time them, then...
It's strong one-on-one, one-on-one, but the dog is gonna die. He's gonna die.
Yeah, the damage was increased. Yeah, based on might stacks, the damage has increased, and also to other sigils, and the pets didn't get any love from the devs. They're still dying in fire fields with 25 might stacks.
But it would be actually cool.
Because people keep their pet on aggressive the whole time.
Yeah, sure. Like, Spider can be hold back and stuff, but...
Yeah, but it's still not about that.
The CC is more important than the DPS.
At least right now I feel like... I know, it's my personal opinion, Ranger is underutilized, how Blue would say it, and also on the EU there's a very few Necros only, mainly due to their lack of sustain. Like, the damage you eat from clones and stuff, you can't out-heal it. Like, air fire procs do more damage in those 25 seconds than your heal does. Yeah, with a Guardian in our meta, actually, the Necro can't... The fights take too long. Don't just pop cooldowns and try to cleave the other team down like you do on an A, but we just try to... Yeah, there's a Guardian, he's cleaning, and the fights take longer. And the Necro can't keep up with the out-rotating stuff because he's slow. That's why Necro is also very underutilized on EU.
The thing about Necro is like when they rotate, is when they come into a fight and they act as a +1, it's one of the most lethal possible classes. Like whenever a Necro +1s, it's like an atomic bomb is dropped on whoever gets +1'd. There's like literally nothing that person can do to like get out of the 1v2 situation. It depends on the person who's getting jumped, obviously. So
that's correct.
That's the biggest strength, I'd say. The slow rotation is like...
Well, it's kind of like a sieve, but a sieve can like disengage bad situations.
Yeah. Well, Necros can juke pretty well too. I think that's really what separates good from bad Necros. Like,
that is huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
I give it to Noskok.
He does have really good jukes.
I do it because it's another gameplay of the Necromancer, like a more burst and then kite, you know, and rather than standing there spamming his bleeds eventually, you know, hexing down enemy. I love the gameplay of more using it as that outnumber the bursting.
Yeah, but like it was designed initially as an attrition class, at least from what ArenaNet was promoting it, and it doesn't really fill this spot. I feel like it needs some life steal or stuff.
Nah, I don't know. We shouldn't be too drastic about that.
I agree with him. I think good Necro knows how to survive fairly long time.
Yeah, Necro, like in the last weeks, even on EU, there's like Champion had Necro, for example, and did it pretty well. But just saying, there is like not as common as Elise or stuff.
Yeah, not as common, but
yeah,
the Necro is strong. That's my opinion.
I also feel like Necros and Rangers don't gain that much from sigils.
I wouldn't agree with
that. They have Geomancy, but that's about it.
I think a large part is that Sigil of Frailty is really underutilized, and the fact that it covers your main conduit damage.
Yeah.
I think that Necros need to stack up on energy sigils anyways. So I mean that's part of their like sigils gone right there anyways, which is put a super good use, considering the class has no vigor or anything to speak of, right? It's like a given, right? So I mean, for sure the Geomancy is pretty key, but I mean, Geomancy and energy is a good combo. I mean, that's some power creep.
For sustained classes, mind stacking is like better than other stuff, and that's what the Ranger can't really do. That's why Ranger can't be a sustained class at the moment, and you have to go for the bleed spike or stuff, and it's not, yeah, people are not really running it. I don't want to judge why.
Yeah, I haven't played Ranger to the highest level possible, so I really can't make too many comments. But I think that Ranger right now is a little bit underpowered in terms of the build's sheer like pressure and defensive ability. And I think that, like Kate said before, the control that you can put off when you become as skilled as Ranger is like just night and day from being a novice Ranger, and that makes them so strong in 1v1s. And navigating teamfights so seems to be like a bit of a tougher issue. Like Rom said about the poor dog dying, you know, he's gonna die for sure in the teamfight on the fire fields. That's like a pretty
meta pets.
Yeah.
Well, I also think that's
dense.
partly still pet control, because you shouldn't keep your pet on aggressive. You should like.
Yeah, but I know what you mean, but then.
He means a passive spider, immobilizing.
I mean, like it's still meta pets. That's my opinion of the Ranger itself. Like the spider. Of course, you will control this so it's outside the team, or outside the damage. Even you must fucking go away. You know, if you see him taking damage, even if you're spiking an enemy and you think you are more viable doing that.
I actually think the spider is more vulnerable to cleave than the dog, because you can't control its positioning as well.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. You need to move in a certain, in another perspective. But it's just, I'm not gonna say that I've tried every single situation with every pet. You know, I'm not gonna say that, but it just feels like. I think.
Most of my experience comes from like the 2v2s and team queues I played with Tanny back when they used to play, and. It still is a huge difference between playing with them and playing with another Ranger.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Same, like I can't play with another Ranger because I don't have anyone who controls the pets as well.
Yeah, I know. Did he play double?
Double, yeah. The wolf and the dog. So that's just where my opinion is based off of.
Cool. So, again, we're going to come back to the same question here. Is there any other topics that any of our guests want to bring up here before we close the stream? Or does anyone have anything else to say on that last topic before we kind of move on from that, more importantly? But beyond that, once again, if anybody else has another topic we want to delve into, feel free to go ahead.
What was the last topic?
The last topic was meta builds and not meta comps.
Yeah.
Oh, meta pets.
Meta builds, yeah.
Builds. Anything else, guys? Or?
I'd just like to add something a little bit. I hear lots of people, especially on the forums and otherwise, complaining about the Celestial Amulet. And I feel like the Celestial Amulet in and of itself is not really a problem. I feel like the spread in stats for 6 out of 8 classes, professions rather, is still not enough to warrant using it, unfortunately, right? It takes 3 things to really make a Celestial build what it is, and that is condition application, healing scaling, so different ways to benefit from heal scaling, and the third is power damage, right? Like those 3, without one in each another, kind of become a pretty mediocre Selly build, right? So I feel like it's a direct problem that the engineer has and then the elementals has that makes Selly too strong in that respect, right? So I think that nerfing the amulet is really dumb an idea, because for 6 out of 8 professions, it's not even that good, no matter what build you have, right? So there's ways that engineers and elementalists get way more benefit out of celestial stats than other professions, which if it was become out of line, they should be addressed rather than attacking the amulet or otherwise. So, I mean,
Yeah,
first,
in fact,
go ahead.
I agree.
yeah, I can agree on this as well. Like for me personally, I'm not gonna go in too much when it comes to balancing and so on. I'm gonna fight with what we got, you know, especially for China upcoming and stuff. I'm not gonna care about this. I let the developers handle this, and I will just give my personal impact as much as I can. But I dislike stuff like, you know, the block on the Earth, for example, the projectile block on Ellie, stuff like that. I want it to be slightly more active.
It is
not
active.
just, yeah, even more active. Maybe you don't understand me, but I think, and also like engineers, CC 4.5 second protection on with a 5 second cooldown as a major trait. Also, I think it's a complete counter to CC overall with power damage. But yeah, whatever.
Yeah, but there's like condition counter too, you know, passive traits that are cleaning conditions.
Yep.
Hey,
Like
overall, I think
The ranger one.
as you guys said, Sally to me isn't the issue. Like Lightning Whip Stow is my issue with DDL. I don't think that Lightning Whip Stow should double be sustained.
Yeah,
Basically.
like I'm playing DDL at the moment, and I feel like I tested it, and using Lightning Whip and stowing it at the end will only cause 1 attack to go off. It usually does 2 hits. But you get this extra heal because you can do this attack more often. You can do it twice as often, so you get double the heal. And if you stow it and attack again, you only get 1 hit, but you hit faster. This 1 hit goes off faster, and overall you do the same damage. It is exactly 100% exactly the same damage, and it's really annoying to stow your auto attack while fighting. But if you want to use your profession to a maximum potential, you're gonna have to do it, kinda. And this is like this is not fun to play.
You macro it.
If you time it correctly,
some people macro it, but you know, it's not allowed to do it. And I would like to have this fixed. And it's the same with Mesmer auto attack. I see Mesmer stowing, but why do people have to deal with stowing weapons on auto attacks just to use their profession to a maximum efficiency?
I don't think that's really an issue.
Not an issue, but it's annoying.
Is that
Yeah, but that's like
It actually
stowing your
gives-
Warhorn on Axe Warhorn. Warhorn on Warrior. Same thing.
Yeah, I don't mind that it actually like increases the efficiency, but what I do think is not balanced is that it's the amount of efficiency it gives.
Yeah, it's OP.
The sustain goes out the roof, and you actually, if you time it correctly, you do more damage because you attack faster with 2 stowed weapons than you do with 1 full auto attack. Once you find the timing, if you sit in the mist for like, what is it? It's been months now, and you just sit there practicing stowed weapons, it's gonna get to the point where
Yeah, you get it into the blood. You can do it, but it's annoying still.
I'm saying it's just completely
Yeah,
insane how much it benefits them.
yeah. You do like you get 276 heal every time. So it's every half second you get 270 extra heal. Every half second.
With Inji, I actually don't have a big problem with Injis. I think for the most part, all of their skills are fairly telegraphed, except for Overcharged. And the thing with Overcharged is it's short range, so it's more of an anticipation. It's kind of a tell when an Inji's running at you, or they immobilize you, that they're going to try to overcharge shot you. and it's a self CC.
There are many EUC engineers, like most of them are running Rabbit Amulet. They're not even running Celestial because they kind of want to rely on the passive procs, because some classes like Mesmer are so hard to catch. You rather try to hit them with some passive things because you can't reliably hit anything on them. I know what their other reasons is for them playing Rabbit. I think Celestial is stronger, but it's maybe personal preference. Both work, and usually Celestial builds need might stacks. So I think 35 stats on power and condition, it's 70 stats for one might stack is a bit much. If I would touch might stacks first before touching the Celestial Amulet.
I don't really Amulet is an issue at all. Like Chase said earlier.
Then there's like, now you can clean the might stacks. There's like Wound Rip that should have a place too in the game.
Like you said before, like it's very difficult for an engineer to like land a lot of his telegraphed abilities on a Mesmer, who's like not wanting to be hit, aka moving defensively. So like I understand Rabbit and buffing your incendiary powder, which is possible to get on a Mesmer, can be very beneficial against that comp. Like I definitely understand that Selly is maybe a slightly more of an advantaged build to run on NA comps when you're facing NA comps, right? That's definitely a factor, but it's not a huge factor. I find that if you play a Selly rifle build to the fullest extent, you can definitely put a lot of pressure on Mesmers as well too, even if they are very skilled, right? I mean, you just have to be opportunistic in their respect, and it's possible to put good pressure on, for sure.
I also think that Selly NG is a lot better in team fights in terms of like team synergy and what you can do with one than a Rabbit NG.
Yeah. Correct.
But Rabbit NG is also extremely strong, and like one of the things I did like about it with Absurd before I had to take my leave, like go, is that we had Ostrich on Rabbit, and I like the fact that as a thief, if you have a lot of condi pressure, it becomes very easy for you to spike down targets. But I think they're both extremely strong, and I don't think Selly is really the problem with any of the builds right now.
Alright.
You can argue that Celestial Amulet is like a bit broken because it gives you too much sustain, but if you see what Mesmer Thief does, today I got one-shotted 2 times in one game, and if a class can like completely play, you know, you want to heal yourself to sustain, but if you get one-shotted, all your heal doesn't affect the game actually, because you just explode. And if you can set up this bursts, you can do it even alone on the Mesmer. You can reach like 15k spike with a Mirror Blade Shatter if you come out of invisibility or something and you land it, and you're completely going, you know, you're just ignoring the game mechanics or the class mechanics. You're ignoring the Celestial class mechanics because it can't sustain. When it just gets one-shotted, you get bursted. People need to learn to coordinate. As I said, we were fighting 3 allies yesterday, and we lost the second game because we tried to cleave and nothing happened. We actually had to focus people down. So if you actually focus a class with Celestial Amulet, it will die, no matter how much sustain it has.
Rom, just out of curiosity, do you use Selly or do you use a different amulet now?
Wait, what did you say?
I said out of curiosity, do you use Celestial or do you switch off between other amulets?
On what class? Ranger, Warrior, Thief?
Warrior.
If I use Celestial?
Do you use Celestial or do you use something else?
That we... no,
You don't honestly.
it depends. It depends. Mainly Soldier.
Soldier. That's what I was thinking. Is that Warriors though?
We have more power damage in our meta, but
it totally depends. Like versus a rifle engineer, for example, then you kind of get carried by the sigil procs. So then Celestial is kind of superior, I guess. But it's about the role I have to do. It's about how much I have to stand on a point when me and I'm not gonna go too far into it, but Soldier at the moment or Celestial.
Do you like?
And it depends also. I can run Warhorn also, but what you say?
I said, which one do you like better?
Celestial or Soldier?
Yeah.
Totally depends. Situational. Same with
Celestial
Ranger.
is more fun to play because you do more damage, but Soldier keeps you alive against spikes.
Yeah, not just spikes. It's another
Yeah.
power, and also you have stronger intelligence procs. You have stronger backbreakers. You have stronger earth shakes. But it depends also what you face. I mean, I'll see what we run versus Abjured, if that's what you're asking.
No, I was just wondering what's your reaction.
Yeah, but same with range actually. I swap between Celestial and Rabid. Yeah, it depends also the situation. I duel a lot. I know what's strong versus what.
That's part of the reason that I actually like Celestial. As Chase was saying earlier, it opens up a lot of build variety. Whereas, like,
Yeah, it does.
I need to play Zerker for those. And Warrior used to be either Zerker or Soldiers, and at this point it would probably be Soldiers only if Celestial.
Yeah, like we didn't even like NA used Zerker far longer than we did. Like I did it in the early stage of Hambo, but then I just realized with the first patch of Hambo, the unsuspecting foe was in the major trait line. No, it was in the minor trait line. Yeah, it was in the adapt trait line, meaning that you had 100% Earthshaker crit with soldiers on that. So like it was, and 100% crits on stunts. So it was fucking OP, like ridiculously OP. We just realized that soldiers were superior. But then they nerfed it slightly here and there.
But then intelligence sigil scheme, so it kind of bound.
Yeah, exactly. But it is a meta sigil, I think, with Warrior, kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, battle energy, doom, geo, kind of. That is a.
You can switch out geo, but you rely on intelligence actually.
Yeah, no, I don't think you can swap out geo too much either. It depends, you know. Also, situation.
Energy or hydro stuff. As you see variation.
Yeah, you can. I have my personal opinion, of course. But
you can't switch out intelligence, for example, or battle.
Not battle for sure, and I actually probably not the intelligence either. The OP thing is the Arcing swap.
I think part
Not
of
OP, but
the really strong part about Warrior is the 5-second swap can make a lot more use out of vertical sigils.
Yes, out of sigils, yes. But also you can't. I really think Warrior is in a fine state.
Yeah, I think Warriors.
Yeah.
I think for the most part everything's fairly balanced, except for I think the lightning whip still needs to be touched.
Yeah, that needs to be touched, definitely.
Yeah.
And also,
like,
I think,
go ahead.
yeah, and but this is me because you don't rely on this with the condi spread that you use on NA mostly, so you don't rely on that protection on CC thing. But I think that is should be slightly enough. Just that trait.
I have to deal with that a lot. And
and you must admit.
Well, I proc it and I take it with steel, so it's kind of a
but then okay, but you still need to think of it, and you still maybe.
To me, thinking about it makes it more fun. So, I don't know. I have to say, Nightmare is the other thing that I think is to be touched.
Yeah, Nightmare is fucked.
By the way, Rom, just to bring back what you said about protection injection, the engineer's protection source, I find that on NA right now, there's pretty much no engineers who take it, and that's because warriors aren't super, prevalent, obviously. It's a really strong trait. It's way too strong as warriors, based on their damage type, but versus everything else, it's kind of just average, not worse than the Vigor, so.
Yeah, exactly.
You're running leg mods, right? Or the toolkit thing?
Well, you see, protection injection is an alchemy, so it competes with a different trait. It's either vigor or protection injection. But in the tools, like leg mods is viable, power wrench is also viable. It really depends on the comp, right? Leg mods is a super good trait to take versus necros, who cripple and chill you for years and years and years. So with Holbrack combined with that, it can be a pretty big reduction, which is really strong. So it just depends on the comp, right?
Yeah, it does.
I have to say that this recent patch is it brings out the most viable builds. Like there's more options for every class in a sense than there has been in the past.
Just okay. To get to Warrior, the Greatsword, I think the rush must be fixed on Greatsword. Really,
so that you can cancel it, or
no?
So
you can
a cancel, I think, would be kind of maybe OP. Actually, you can't you must really be careful with the rush, stowing or whatever. But it's about the rush, like how the animation of it. Like sometimes if you just move straight, like around the warrior. All you need to do
I
is
was gonna say if you walk through them.
yeah, you just need to walk through the warrior when he rushes. Like it's such an unreliable skill, and even if you are like 1 meter, centimeter on the screen away when you use it, like this is supposed to be an auto attack would have hit, but this is like it runs and then it runs for 2 seconds.
Yeah, but there are many mechanics that are fucked up.
But this is huge for the greatsword. I'm just saying that
it breaks the skill a lot of times.
Yeah, it breaks the entire weapon when it comes to that. I mean, the damage on rush is...
In a way, they could probably fix that pretty easily and changing it to a similar mechanic, like Ride the Lightning.
I had a good idea as well too about rush. What they could do potentially, it's just an idea I'm throwing out here, is they could make the actual slash at the end a second stage skill you have to press again, meaning that you will do the rush and you'll do the slash at the end, or even not, right? But you could also stop the rush prematurely and just do the slash whenever you get to your opponent, right? It's a possibility.
And if you don't use the slash, you do the full run.
Perhaps, you know, it's an option.
Yeah, like maybe a straight charge, just a straight charge.
We start dreaming. Now we start dreaming.
Yeah,
no, it would be cool.
I
kind of regret that. We should stop dreaming.
It would be awesome. It would be awesome. Imagine having, a completely straight line. It's kind of fast. It's like double swiftness, and boom, you just move straight, and then you do
Imagine just on Stuff Alley would actually work. Imagine.
Would make it so funny. Make it beautiful.
Beautiful. Absolutely.
Alright,
Yeah,
guys.
Valkyrie amulet, guys.
Yeah.
Used much?
I mean, overall, I think people need to kind of branch out on their own and like get a sense of what they like playing with, because there's a lot more viable options than people realize, and they kind of follow the top players instead of figuring out their own playstyle.
Like as I said, it's an interesting build of Karen was playing it on Team Champion, triple Signet, or was it even 4 Signet? 4 Signet Condition Elementalist, and it could be TCG. So you just don't expect it. You don't know how to play against it, and there's a disadvantage enough.
That I don't know. It could be TCG.
It means that you can. It means that you can run this on a high level play.
But do you know his role in these fights, or do you know how that outcome was?
I think that no one knows that besides you and them, because those are the only people.
It wasn't streamed.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not about
but his team is solid, and they can. It works with this build, you know.
One thing I do is I don't think that even he knows if it's good or not at this point.
Yeah,
it needs to be played. You have to play things to kind of figure them out, and you can't just say, "Oh, this didn't work this one time," and throw it away.
Yep.
I think he dropped it because he couldn't sustain against the DLEs, and he was engaged in like 1v1s and stuff.
But see, the thing is that could just be a rotational error where you.
It's like saying it's a rotation issue, sure, but
it's just
easier to rotate if you have the DLE. Like, why would you pick this pigeonholed thing that has to be in the spot when you can have a good overall class or build?
Yes and no. I also think that people should play what they enjoy playing, because they can make it.
Yeah, that's true.
Because the more you like playing something, the more effort you put into it, and the better you'll be at playing it. I mean, I've played Dagger Pistol since December of 2013, 2012. And I mean, I even when SD was like the only thing that anyone else played, I still played Dagger Pistol, and I did.
You're a conservatist, are you not?
I don't know if I would say that, but
well, Kate's pretty conservative when it comes to his build, for sure. To get him off that is like, oh man.
I did kind of the same with my Staff Alley build and the Pirate Rune, trying to keep the pet alive, giving you a lot of 1v1 potential. In teamfights you have lots of AoEs and heals and support. It worked quite well, but then I was in some situations where I thought if I wasn't the DLE now, I would be able to kill this guy and take this triple caps buff on Temple, for example. And the more and more situations you get in, You don't always have a chance to rotate. Some guy is stuck on the home point fight, other guy is dead, next guy is stuck on the top buff and stuff. You are just the only one left, and you have to go. So
I think part of it for me is that, like, say, compared DP to SD, is that DP actually has a lot of potential where that SD doesn't in terms of team utility and the things that you can do in a fight. And SD has a lot more, like, survivability. So it's just a trade-off.
Yeah.
Both are bad.
Yeah, it is very true. And they stack with certain other classes as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've played all the Thief builds. I've played a lot more than I've experimented a lot with Thief builds, and it's just settling back to what my personal playstyle is.
from your experience as Thief, would you say you have a lineup with 4 sustained DPS classes? Like, would you say DP or SD is stronger when you're like the only glass cannon in the team?
He's gonna say DP, you know.
He's gonna say DP, but
well, the thing is, you have Toker who's playing SD right now, and he's filling my role on that team. And I mean, getting Vanna's perspective on this, I was talking to him before, and Vanna likes SD better because, and I quote, he does better in 2v2s with SD. So from his experience, he thinks SD is better because it just fits with him better. Whereas my experience, I think it's a lot easier for me playing DP, not having to have another glass cannon on the team, because I can literally do whatever I want. And I feel like I have a lot more impact when I roll into a fight than an SD thief does. But an SD thief can also potentially hold their own for a longer amount of time instead of having to disengage at the same time I would. And it just kind of changes how the whole team comp plays, and not necessarily one being better over the other.
Yeah, that is like that. I mean, SD is a bouncer. He can be there, be annoying, just be poking little here, little there. DP is boom, spike, move out, kite. You know, there is that guy over there.
It's a completely different playstyle.
Yeah, it's a completely different gameplay. Both are viable, yeah.
I mean, you can look at it like, say, on your side, you have Sizer who makes SD work extremely well, and then I play DP, and like...
Yeah, and who knows, maybe you were to fill in a good spot as a thief for us also, because then maybe you would spike harder with the Mesmer, who knows, you know?
And what I think that would show is...
Isn't that what your comp relies on, Rom?
Well, both builds work, and I think that's the thing that people don't realize, is that it's not so much what build you run, it's how you play with that build.
Yes.
You can't play the same way with everything. It's just not going to work out. And being able to adapt is, I think, what people will eventually have to learn. And I think EU, in the sense that I think PCG has a better idea of adapting than a lot of other teams because they've been around so long. And on NA, it's a little more you have so many teams running so many different things. I don't think people are unable to adapt. I think it's just finding the right people to work together with.
Yeah, but there are situations where build really drops or when it shines. Like when you play Staff Ellie and you're together with a Guardian in a team, you lack pressure, no matter what you do. You will end up with a guy and with 2 guys which can't like clean a fight, can't, I know, kill the last player left, and it's not good synergy.
Yeah, but you can just put a DDLE in a different spot, and like instead of comparing the DDLE to a Staff Ellie in the same situation, you have to think about, I can put a DDLE over here and compare that best situation to the Staff Ellie's best situation.
I was just saying that Staff Ellie in general is very often in a bad position when you play together with a Guardian, because it's like you can't always split 2 players from each other at all costs. I'm saying it doesn't have good synergy.
Yeah.
Maybe there are the same issues with Thief, whether we run SD or DP. I don't know.
I still think it depends on how your team plays and not so much the classes.
Yeah, but what situation would be the team comp you would run DP and when would you run SD? That's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying. There's no such situation. An SD thief is better in skirmishes for a prolonged amount of time, where a DP thief is better at +1ing. So it just changes into an SD thief fighting in skirmishes versus a TP thief plus winning as much as possible and kind of rotating.
And the DP, if you have a bunker meta, I would say I would actually prefer a DP.
You can finish off, yeah. Bunker.
I mean, you can have the. I mean, if there really isn't something to really train down, then as an SD, I wouldn't see. I would rather prefer a DP. Like, you don't do that little damage every here and there, but instead you boom somebody at times.
Don't underestimate the amount of spike that SD thieves can pull off as well too. Like,
you mean the sigils? You mean?
Well, depending on the build as well too, right? Yeah, the sigils, right? Depending on the build, like, I see Toker and Fanta duel all the time, right? And sometimes when Toker gets a steal on the might stacks Fanta has, Toker's auto-attacking him for like 4k, and Fanta just gets spiked down by auto-attacks, right?
And I think that's a large part to SD thief mechanics. If you can get good at stealing those might stacks, that's when you have a huge amount of spike. And that's just a lot of playstyle and getting good at certain aspects of the build. Because DP doesn't have the potential to steal those might stacks. It's a lot more consistent spike, whereas I think SD has some burst. And I differentiate spike and burst between a huge, like, instant amount of damage versus, like, a short span of big pressure, where spike is instant and burst is kind of a little more more. That's just my personal definition.
I do feel like that SD is kind of difficult now with the changes to flanking strike and larcenous, being that you have to hit flanking to activate larcenous. It is quite challenging indeed for an SD thief to steal might from an LA who's stacked up, right? Or anyone else who's stacked up, for example. It's almost like larcenous seems a little bit underpowered. Maybe if it's had a little bit of like a steal 2 boons under half health or something like that, a little bit of love, it would be better. But at the same time, it's performing well. Like, the matchups aren't bad for sure. SD Thief does what it's supposed to do. So I think everything in general is just in a good place right now. Like, I can see arguments for just about most builds that are in the meta right now. Otherwise, for and against. So it's good. I like that. That's a very positive thing.
Yeah, I mean, even if you don't get that larcenous, and then the enemy might have just dodged the larcenous, now the SD Thief may just waste a few more CDs on opponent just by clicking larcenous 3 times in a row.
Yeah.
I mean, missing the number 1 3 times in a row. I mean, maybe it even is a superior situation, but that actually occurs. So yeah, it's plus and minus. I like the game.
I think we all like it.
Yeah.
That's why we're here.
Alright guys, so I think I am gonna kind of pull back the show here, as we're quite a bit over the time. This is actually kind of interesting, because I kind of like how this kind of turned into, we had the structured show at the start, and then I kind of just threw over the show to you guys, and we've had this somewhat lengthy discussion about high tier meta, but it seems most people like it, so... Interesting. Might do that again in the future. Anyway, though, guys, we are going to pull it back now as we're approaching the 2-hour mark here for the stream, so I think it is time to bring it to a close. Before we do that, however, we have some things on the radar coming up over the next few weeks or so. Please keep in mind, guys, that every week now on Sunday are the ESL Go4 Cups. The North American version of the Cup happens at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. It's going to be 1 p.m. Pacific, or I think that's 10 p.m. or 22 CET for those of you watching in Europe. The stream location will vary. I think we're still trying to nail down exactly where it'll be for this weekend, but I think there'll be more details on that on ESL stuff. The EU version of the Cup happens at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 7 a.m. Pacific, or I think that's 2 p.m. or 14 CET is when that one will take place as well, so be sure to look forward to that every Sunday from now on, basically. And beyond that, don't forget the WTS Finals is going to be coming up here soon as well. It's going to be from December 4th to the 5th, if my memory serves me correctly. Keep in mind, guys, that if you are looking forward to watching that when it happens, just get ready to stay up late, because it's, considering it is in Beijing, more than likely it's going to be at least for people in the States, probably going to be at a fairly inconvenient time to watch. So if you are looking forward to checking that out, just kind of be prepared to watch it at a bit of an awkward time for yourselves. But beyond that, anything I'm forgetting here, guys, that I should be mentioning as stuff that's coming up, or?
I don't think so.
No?
No, I think you got it.
Got most of the major stuff. Alright, cool. So once again, guys, thank you all very much for tuning in. If you missed the earlier parts of the stream or you want to catch last week's episode, you can go ahead and pull the video VODs off of my YouTube channel. There's a link down below to that if you hit info, and then it's on my YouTube. It's on my little blog page. There is a link to my YouTube channel, or you can just go to youtube.com/DOCTERVLU. And of course, we also upload this podcast in an audio format over on SoundCloud. If you head over to soundcloud.com/meta-podcast, you can go ahead and find it there, or you can just search for Meta Podcast, and I think we're the only one that pops up. Look for my little helmet symbol, and that will signify that it is a podcast. Beyond that, guys, thanks to all our guests for tuning in. Cade, 5Gauge, Blackjack, and Rom. Thank you guys very much for showing up today. I'd bring some of you guys back in the future. What's somebody have a...
Thank you for hosting.
Yes,
Thanks for the invitation.
No problem. And yeah, so once again, guys, thank you all very much for tuning in. Next week might be interesting, because we might do something a little bit different. Might have one specific topic for the entire cast. But give more details on that when we give more details on that. But other than that, guys, thank you once more for tuning in. Be sure to follow the channel to be notified whenever it goes live with tournaments, podcasts, me streaming, or whatever the heck may be going on here. And beyond that, I hope you all have a wonderful day. So thank you once more, and we'll see y'all next time.
Nice meeting you, lads, by the way.
It's fun.
Yeah, for sure.
See everybody. See you next time, guys.
All right, bye now.
Yeah.
Ciao.
Okay.